Kindly pick up those pieces of paper and trash around you so we can start our discussion, please. Are we all set up? Okay, who's gonna lead our prayer? Okay, Miss De Jesus. Amen. Good morning, class. I hope you will have a great morning or day ahead. Let's start our morning in a positive way, shouldn't we? But before that, the secretary, is everybody's present for today's discussion? Okay, that's great that everyone's present, okay? Because we will have a continuation of our discussion yesterday. But before we start, I would like to play a short clip of a video that will open our discussion and also a recap about our discussion yesterday. Okay, listen carefully. I might ask you a question later. According to what you've watched, what does the video mean anyway? Because of the anthropologists and their work, we open to other kind of practices, cultures. We have some knowledge about those. Because of those, we can avoid the discrimination that will happen. So therefore, anthropologists and their work is important in our world. Because of the anthropologists and their works, we have some knowledge and open our mind to other cultures, practices that other society has, and it also give us some knowledge of the past and the present. Now let's start our discussion. Let's start in the types of research in anthropology. Anthropologists uses a range of methods to do research when it comes to writing and testing explanation. Each has pros and cons. As you all know that when we are doing a research, all of the methods that we are gonna use, it can have a pros and cons in our research. And based on two criterion, anthropology study can be divided into two categories. One is the spatial scope, and we have three examples in here. An analysis of a single society, wherein it refers to a small group of people or a one or single society. Whereas an analysis of societies in a region, it refers to all societies that belong or under the region. Lastly, we have an analysis of a global sample of society. It refers to the researchers testing or conducting the entire world. Okay? Now, the other criterion is the study's temporal scope, historical versus non-historical. Later on, we will have some activity about this. Okay, so listen to the discussion. Furthermore, there are two methods that the anthropologists use. Any idea what are those two? That's correct. Point observation, it means that the researcher is present that society that he being studied, or he is participating with the people being studied. On the other hand, field work is wherein the researcher is being involved, or he is practicing also the practices that the society has or the people being studied of. So now, how an anthropologist conduct a long-term participant observation in another culture, and more importantly, how they do it well. It is not that simple, you know. Much of it is determined by the individual, the culture, and the interaction between the two, the researcher and the people being studied of. Without a doubt, The experiences is psychological, physical, taxing, and it is frequently compared to a rite of passage. For them to collect a data or everything that they needed, they also require a companion or informants who are either living or part of the society that being studied to interpret and tell you about the aspects of the culture that you may not have seen or may not be entitled to see. Because in research we have a ethical privacy. As a result, as the researcher, how will you know that your informant is trustworthy? And also, what if they refuse you? Impressed about the answer? I see that you reading ahead of time before we discuss a lesson. That's great, okay? According to your answers, what do you think is the purpose or sense of the ethnographic as a source of material for anthropologists? However, conducting ethnographic research is a time-consuming and it also difficult. Addition to that, available data on a particular culture may be several decades old. So, how do we know if the data is still valid? I am impressed. Ethnographic can test a theory within a simple society by comparing individuals, families, household, communities, or districts. The existing natural variability can be used to create a comparison. For example, anthropologist John Whiting discovered that the statistical association that the society with apparently low protein in diets tend to have a long-term postpartum sex tabus. It an attempt to explain why certain societies have a postpartum sex taboo. As a result, we can anticipate some variation in the spacing between births. We can also compare the survival rate of a children born in a short time after the mother's late pregnancies. More, if one society is high in protein, will it have a higher survival rate? As a result, John rating is correct. Anthropologists use a regional controlled comparison to compare ethnographic data to obtain from societies in any specific region, societies that presumably have a similar histories and occupy similar environment. In addition, an anthropologist conducting a regional comparison is likely to be familiar with the complex of cultural features associated with a region. For an anthropologist to have when conducting this type of research. Yes, because regional controlled comparison is useful not only for generating but also in explanations on what and why questions. Moreover, because of some societies being compared will have the characteristic to be explained and the others will not. We must keep in mind, however, that the two or more conditions may be related in one region or society. That doesn't mean that the other societies or other region has the same explanation. Now, anthropologists can generate interpretation based on the global comparisons by looking for differences between societies that have and not have a particular characteristic. However, the most common application of global comparison has been to test explanation. Let us recall John Whiting theory. What does he discover and what it is? Good. What did I tell you that you keep this in your mind? Okay, that is why we have cross-cultural, which deals with a broader range of this kind of issue. Furthermore, Whiting's theory may be correct in one region, so an anthropologist will examine a global example of society to see if the expected association holds true in general. So it means that John Whiting theory may proven in one region but doesn't mean the other region had the same result or explanation with the dance beating. So although cross-cultural researchers can choose any set of societies to test theories and hypotheses, it is preferable to avoid personal bias in a sample of society and selection. Now let's proceed to historical research. Ethnohistorical is the study of a single society at the multiple points in time using descriptive materials. It is provide essential data for all types of historical studies, just as the ethnography does for all non-historical types of research. Ethnohistorians, like historians, cannot simply assume that all documents they find are simply descriptions of fact. How they will know if the document is telling the truth without being biased. Also, there are no writing tools back then, and the people were unable to write a single word. What do you think is the strategies or procedure that the historian do? Anyone? Okay, that's good. Who else? None? Okay, before we proceed to our next topic, what do you think is the important or goal of the cultural ethnography? Okay, that is a good point. Now let's proceed to our next topic, studying the distant past. Class, what do you think why study archaeology? What is the purpose or goal of it? That's right, archaeologists may use this data to learn about human evolution by looking at the places they inhabited, the lifestyle that they have at that time, their culture, and the evolution of not only human but also the physical world. These patterns and trends help us to understand why we have become who we are right now. We have 4 types of evidence that the archaeologists and paleoanthropologists use to understand about the past. Start with artifacts. Do you have any idea what are those? Yes, anything that is created by human are considered artifacts. These are some of example of artifacts. For example, your clothes, your everything now. Think all of those things that you have thrown that could be artifacts in the futures. So those kind of artifacts that creates or see what we have now. One of the tools that the people use in the past is the stone tools. It also known as the lithic by the archaeologists, are by far the most common artifacts from the past. In that, for 99% of human history, lithic were the only types of artifacts are available. These are the lithics. These are the example of lithics. It is the technical term for stone tools. Now we have the ecofacts. Anyone? Okay, that is right. Ecofacts are natural objects that have been used or influenced by the human. A good example is a bone. These bones are similar to artifacts, but they were not created or modified by humans. They were simply used, eaten, and discarded by them. The remains had been discovered at the sites because they are associated with humans and survive by exploiting the condition that human created. Because their presence is caused in a part by human presence, they are also considered eco-facts. Okay, any questions about that? Are we clear? Now let's proceed in fossils. Anyone who wants to answer what is fossils? Thank you very much. Fossils can also be hardened remains of animals' skeletal structures. When an animal dies, the organic matters that made up its body degrades. The fossil that we can see is at the museum. As you all know that some of the fossils of dinosaurs and so on of kind of animals. Sadly, we don't have fossils remains of everyone who lived in the past. And sometimes you only discover one part of the bone and you can't discover all the parts of it because it was decades old. So anthropologists are trying to find the other parts of the bone so they can define what kind of creature that's the owner of that bones. Because of that, the fossil record is extremely incomplete. Now we have the last one, the features. Features. So anyone who wants to answer or define or give an example what kind or what is the feature? Thank you for your answer. Yes, features are like also the artifacts. Hence, the features cannot be moved easily. For example, the house of our late hero, which is Jose Rizal. The house of his is still remain, and that's kind of historical features. And it cannot be moved to another place. It is stay in one place. Okay, that's the kind of features. You cannot move that easily. Okay? Now we have an example of features. This is stratigraphy. Stratigraphy, or the study of how the steep, rock, or soil formations are built down in the consecutive levels of strata. Is the oldest and the most extensively used method of relative dating. Indicator artifacts or environmental facts are also employed to build a stratigraphic sequence for related dating a new discoveries. Now let's move on to our next topic, which is the ethics in anthropological research. First, let me ask you, what is ethics in anthropological research? Okay, that is correct. Being ethical is important in conducting research in order to respect individual culture and differences. As I told you earlier, we have this kind of ethical privacy. So in here we keep the privacy of our peoples that being studied. Can you give me some example of ethical anthropology action? Anyone? Okay, that is correct. Now I want you to give a round of applause for everyone that is participating in our discussion and answer all my questions. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Any question, class? I see none. I will not give you another questions because I see that you are all active and participating in our discussion. I am seeing that you are reading ahead of time, no? So keep up the good work. If there is no questions, thank you very much. Now, before we end it up this discussion, I would like to give you an activity. A whole sheet of paper and ask for this set of problems. You can either write the questions or just the answer only. Just don't forget your name because I am not manghuhula to know if who's the owner of that paper. Now kindly pass the paper back to the front and the side in here so we can have a proper and sense of passing the paper. Now I want to leave you assignments. Please copy this one. So please copy this one as your homework. Once you are done, you can all leave And the cleaners will stay to clean up our classroom so we can clean and come back tomorrow. That is, it is also clean to have a more discussion and a lot of informations that we were about to discuss and to know. Thank you so much. Have a great day and see you tomorrow. Bye, class.